You saw the fight. Now see it from the referee's perspective. Next on Soccer Rewind.
Suspended. Well, even if they didn't see it, when they see the tape, he's going to get suspended. Absolutely.
Everybody for both teams except for Chris Ray is out now. And
Gaston got the red card.
Yep, Gaston's out of the game.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our very first Soccer Rewind Extra, where we go a little bit deeper on a topic that we have previously explored. You may remember a while back, we did a live event on the 20th anniversary of the big brawl between the Chicago Storm and the Cleveland Force in a 2005 game in the second major indoor soccer league. We had some great guests on that game, but someone who couldn't join us that night is with us now to lend his valuable perspective to what went on that night in Chicago. He is Ron Cory. He was a very long-time indoor soccer professional referee, and he was on the four-man officiating crew that night in Chicago. Very, very experienced, and he's here to take us inside what happened that night from his point of view. Ron, thanks for being on Soccer Rewind.
Hey, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
So, Ron, your career officiating pro indoor soccer goes back to the early 90s and the National Professional Soccer League, the NPSL. You spent a long time in the game. Did you see anything in the NPSL or other leagues that you worked that approached what happened that night in Chicago in terms of just being weird and out there?
No, that was probably believe it or not, my only brawl that I really had, with multiple players. You know, we had some skirmishes before, with one or two players, but nothing like that. That was wild. So
yeah, in the NPSL, you had a lot of teams that would play each other a lot. You'd have teams playing a lot of back-to-backs. You'd even have teams playing 3 games in less than 72 hours. So tempers would get hot, but nothing like we saw that night in Chicago, right?
Yeah, nothing like that.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to that night. It is March 19th, 2005 at the Pavilion at the University of Illinois at Chicago. If you haven't watched the recording of the live event, make sure to do so because it'll give you perspective of the players and broadcasters from that night. And just to set the scene first for you, the expansion Chicago Storm was 15-15 coming into this game. They were a half game behind the 14-13 Force, and there were only 7 teams in the MISL at this point. So it was very, very important. You knew going in, Ron, that both of these teams were fighting for that playoff spot. Only about 10 or 12 games left in the season, and these guys had history that season. I mean, the Storm was a new team, but they had already played each other several times and tempers had flared. Had you done a Chicago-Cleveland match before this night that season?
I don't believe I did. Going into the game, we knew it was going to be a tough game. There was a couple of issues that I didn't know nothing about, like the one thing that actually started the brawl was Johnny Ball and the coach for
Chicago,
which was
Frank Klopas.
Frank Klopas. I had no clue that they had an issue going. I guess Ball played for him before.
Right.
But yeah, other than that, it was going to be a good game. We knew it was important. No clue that was going to happen. It was wild. So
let's take a look and see how this one started, because it did start off kind of rough and tumble, and you can tell us, Ron, from your perspective. First, we have Sonny Nomoski here taking out Ryan Hall, and this is with only a couple minutes gone in the first quarter, and Hall's like, okay. Then getting stuck in there was Byron Alvarez and Jim Larkin, and Larkin was a guy who didn't hesitate to get it into it, mix it up with people either, was he?
No, Larkin was a tough cookie there. He never backed down. So, but yeah, it was definitely a playoff caliber game. They were going at it.
You can see bodies flying here,
yeah,
for sure. Then, as Larkin gets back up, we see now here Leo and John Ball go into each other. Ball didn't take any quarter. He didn't suffer people gladly, and Leo was small but never wanted to back down. This was what did you call here? A foul on which guy?
That was on Johnny Ball.
Yeah.
So we've called quite a few of the fouls. We probably could have, hindsight, 2020, but probably could have gave some more blues. But I thought we called the game fairly tight, but maybe we should have thrown some more blues. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows?
Fred DeGan took out Joel Bailey there, and then here Ted Chronopoulos trips out Gary DePalma. DePalma would figure later in the action that we will see later on. What was you mentioned maybe throwing some more blues early. What was your philosophy, Ron? And what was the general guideline for you guys at that point in history with the league in terms of how you should approach a game early on in terms of setting the tone?
Boy, there really wasn't one. I mean, they just that old NPSL and the second NPSL or MISL, it was let them play, let them go, let them decide the game. I mean, we didn't actually tell us to keep our card in the pocket, but that was kind of the level we wanted them to let them decide the game, not the refs, not the refs. So.
Okay. So we get to halftime of this game, and Chicago's leading 3-2. And actually, looking at the score sheet now, 20 years later, Chicago had 14 fouls in that first half to Cleveland's 6. So you could easily say that Chicago was the aggressor on that night, at least in the first half. And then as we get later in the game, when we get to the third quarter, we're going to look at the fight now in real time and give me your thoughts from your perspective on the floor. We're going to see this as it happened. There's one commercial break that we cut out, but let's take a look now. Third quarter, Chicago leading 3-2. Here's the flashpoint. Just under 5.5 minutes left in the quarter. Lazo Alabanya's shot rebounds way out high into the neutral zone. Ball runs onto it and slots it past Danny Waltman to tie the game. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and a lot of little things happen. Ball jaws at the Chicago bench. It's understandable given the rivalry and how rough that game had been going to that point. To be fair, he's a very competitive guy. Alabanya's shot goes off Hanoni Martinez. If it doesn't go out this far, ball is not there hanging around in midfield, and if he doesn't have a nice finish, Danny Waltman has admitted he should have made the save, but now tempers are starting to flare. Remember, back in those days, there was a timeout right after the goal. In those days, anybody could come out onto the field after a goal to congratulate the scorer, and there was a timeout for that. They changed the rule because of what happened next. Everybody gets into it. I see you right there watching and seeing Chris Hanser. What are you thinking at this moment?
Well, I'm just trying to get people calmed down. I believe it was Gaston Panera.
Yep, Gaston Panera. Yep.
Yeah, he was a firecracker, anyways. I mean, and I don't think he was a dirty player. He's just a hard player, and he was just all muscle. I mean, he'd go up and challenge you on a ball, and I mean, you got nothing but 99% muscle hitting you. And again, I don't think he was a dirty player. That's why that punch was just out of nowhere. I was stunned when I saw it. Then that's his brother, the little one.
Leo.
Leo, yeah. And no, it was just wild.
And you didn't hesitate. You didn't hesitate here, Ron, at all. You saw the punch. I see the red card is in your hand. You didn't hesitate on Leo at all.
Nope, I'm getting rid of I saw Gaston throw it, and then I'm getting rid of Leo, and then there was a couple other ones. I mean, I wish we would have
there. Yeah, right there. It gets worse. Gaston seemingly out of the picture, and then he goes after Larkin, and then everything happens here. We see a kick come in. We see Bailey come in and land a kick. It's just a melee at this point.
Yeah, I wish we could have had replay to look at before we restarted the game, because there definitely would have been more red cards. I mean, there probably would have been 4 or 5 on each side. Who knows? But it was definitely a long night, a lot of paperwork. I remember that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Matter of fact, we go out to a Greek restaurant that night with Steve Siomas, good friend of mine, former referee, and we missed the Greek restaurant closed by the time we were done doing paperwork. So I wasn't too happy about that. But
now Omid Namazi took his team off the floor. They came back on. The story we heard at the time, the PA announcer even said it, was that Jim Larkin was red carded, but Omid refused to play the rest of the game unless it was rescinded and he was allowed to play. And Omid was supposed to come on the live stream event. He said he would, then he ghosted us. Was that a true story, or was that not how it happened?
I never remember. That was not a true story. I'd be honest. I think, gosh, I wish I had the box score to that game, because
I do.
How many did we only have? Maybe 2, 3 red cards?
Yeah, as it turned out, right. We'll look at the whatever the aftermath of this after this. Here, the four of you are putting your heads together, and Ryan Sigich is in there now, who's now the head of officials for the MISL. He's in there. What discussions were going on? You said without the benefit of replay, you had to kind of piece this together, right?
Yeah. We're just getting all this information, and there's just so much, and you're trying to remember what you just saw, and things are just bombarding you in your brain, and I know did you ever reach out to the other referee, MISL Tasopos?
No, did not.
In that conversation, and I'm not throwing him under the bus or nothing. He was a rookie, probably 1 or 2 year referee. Great outdoor referee, did a lot of NCAA stuff. He actually was trying to talk us into, and again, I'm not throwing him, of abandoning the game. It was like, let's leave. And I says, no, they don't do this. The NBA don't do it. The NFL don't do it. NHL don't do it. We're not doing it. We're going to finish this game. And I do remember that. There was a good not argument, but a talk back and forth. He definitely wanted to abandon the game.
Which is something you might do outdoors, but like you said, does not happen indoors.
Yeah, this is, but we're getting all the information. Ryan had some players, and like I said, we ended up, I guess I was old school back then, the old NPSL days, no blood, no foul, basically.
Right.
And that's why we only threw a couple of guys out. We're there to entertain the fans, I guess. So,
seeing security come out onto the field was different as well. That's not something you see a lot of. You see, Namazi here is still pleading his case. He was not one to let things slide at all. They're trying to restore order and get everybody back so that we can continue to play the game. And he's going to be saying here, look, Chris Ray got punched in the eye. He's making the case here to Oscar Albuquerque, who's an assistant for Chicago, and Ryan's trying to separate those two to make sure nothing more happens. So, and there's Paul Garofalo. You see all these folks that were involved in these conversations, and we were televising this game, but I wish we had a lip reader or we had audio of what was being, because I bet these conversations were really interesting.
Yeah, I do remember when Cleveland, I believe it was Cleveland, left the field.
Right, they did.
I remember talking to somebody. I don't think it was Namazi, but I was talking to a player, and I brought up and I know just totally off the subject, but I brought up the Kermit, I believe it was Kermit Washington.
Right, and Rudy Tomjanovich
punched the player in the NBA, and I brought that up because that had happened maybe 5 years before that, and maybe 10, I don't even remember. But I remember I said, guys, that happened in a game, and they didn't cancel the game. The team did not walk off. Rudy Tomjanovich, wasn't that the name? Basketball.
Rudy T.
I go, they didn't walk. I think it was Houston maybe, but anyways, they didn't walk off the field. And I says, man, you're looking at a big fine if you don't get back out on the field. I mean, you got to come out. We got to finish this game. If we abandon it, that's on us. But you guys abandoned it. You're going to be talking a lot of money, being paid. And I remember that conversation. And then they came out, and eventually we ended up finishing the game. But in hindsight, you look at it and you're like, yeah, we should have, God, I wish we would have called maybe 4 more blue cards, maybe. But I've been in games where we've had 14 blue cards and we had a fight. I've been in games where we had no blue cards, should have had 10 blue cards, and we didn't have a fight. What do you do,
Right. Now, we saw again Leo Pernilla's punch. The fact that punch didn't land, it didn't appear to land, did that factor into it at all, or is just throwing the punch enough to get yourself ejected?
Just Leo was just being crazy.
Yeah.
I definitely saw Gaston's. We saw that one.
Right.
And Leo, and I don't even remember who, believe it or not, I don't even remember who we threw out besides Leo and Gaston. I know
yes,
Bailey should have.
You threw out Fred DeGand. You threw Fred DeGand out, who will come up here. Here's more of the conversation happening. We'll see Fred DeGand here shortly, wondering why he got thrown out. Of all the people who did get thrown out, that's like you said. If you'd had the benefit of replay, it might have been easier to pick out exactly who did what. But you were going on, what the four of you could see, what people are chirping in your ears about. So it's got to be a chaotic situation.
Yeah, it was. It was. And we definitely, that game right there, you definitely need video replay. And I believe right there is when I told them what's going on. This is happening. This is happening. And that's it. It's not up for debate. We're playing, you know. So, and I don't know how we got DeGant, how he got thrown out, you know, and not some of them other guys, you know, but it was wild. So.
Yeah, so then you got to try to restore, not only restore order, but you got to come back and try to finish the game. And that's what, once the teams realized, once Frank Klopas realized, and once Omid Namazi realized, this game's got to go on. We've had, like, this point, it's been 10 or 12 minutes. Here's Fred DeGan trying to ask himself, why have I been thrown out? I don't know. And Ted Chronopoulos, who's a captain, who's pleading his case, as captains do. So not only do the players and the coaches have to get back into the mindset, you on the crew had to get back into the mindset of, we've got to play, we've got to officiate the game, we've got to stay focused. What was that like?
Yeah, it was, you know, I thought that, here, excuse me, let me shut this door here. You know, once we jumped forward, once we got the game started again, I think it was actually a pretty boring game. Well, I say boring, not boring, but, you know, they played soccer.
Uneventful. It was fairly uneventful from that point forward.
So I think they got it all out in that couple of minutes there. And, yeah, there's DeGant. I don't remember why we got him. Maybe we got him confused with Bailey on the karate kick. I don't know. Yeah, there he is. And Hanser was probably should have been gone. You know, I mean, you could look at this video and probably end up getting 8 people out, or 7 or 6.
By that point, yeah, then you've got a weird game here. Fred's not having it. He doesn't want to. Yeah, he doesn't want the camera in his face. That's, you're right. And so, because of what happened, how this kind of altered the way the rest of the season went, you could, make the case that had you had the benefit of replay, which they do have now, and they have the benefit of challenges and the benefit of being able to go. And Ryan Sigich, who's on this crew again, obviously has a philosophy of how his guys work in the Major Arena Soccer League. Things may have turned out very differently had they had a monitor for you, had that been a rule at the time, and you'd have been able to go over to it and watch things in real time. It would have extended probably the time period, but it might have made your life a little bit easier. Yeah,
I think it would have, definitely. And this, I believe, the assigner was Herb Silva.
Right.
Does that sound right? Yeah, yep. And I think it was, yeah. And when Herb took over, the old NPSL, or previous NPSL was, I'm not trying to be controversy, but it was kind of the wild west.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, really, we did not want to determine the games. Let the players do it. And there was a lot of, if you look back at all the old videos and tapes, I mean, there's some fouls in there that today were probably red cards. Right. Back then it was like, just a foul, let's go. And believe it or not, the players accepted that though. That's the way they played. They accepted it. So, except on this game here, I mean,
So when you look back on it, it's a combination of a lot of things, right? You have a small league, so teams are facing each other a lot. You have two teams that already had history going back to early in the season when Chicago had blown a lead and Cleveland had come back and won. You had what people didn't know at the time, but which came out on the live show that we did, was that Gaston had to be restrained from getting off the team bus to go after John Ball. So there was a lot of personalities. And then the little things, like you used to be able to come off the bench. They changed that rule. Had Danny Waltman made the save, maybe none of this happens. If Ball doesn't chirp at Frank Klopas when they come off the bench, maybe it doesn't happen. If everybody's not swarming, maybe things don't happen. It just a bunch of little things that happened. And I made this point on the broadcast too. That was right about the time where they started taking the glass off of the sides. Kansas City was the first to start taking glass off. There was glass all the way around the pavilion, but maybe if there's no glass, maybe things spill over. Maybe it gets even worse. You don't know.
End up being like the Detroit Piston brawl there,
which had just happened a couple months prior to this and was very much in the back of people's minds. So you mentioned what happened in the game. So here was the aftermath. So Aaron Susi and Joel Bailey were ejected. Susi, I don't know why yet either. For Chicago, both Pernias and Fred DeGand, we've established we're not quite sure. Maybe it's a mistaken identity. I'm sure Fred maintains to this day that it was mistaken identity. Ted Chronopoulos pled his case. You gave him 5 minutes, probably because he was a little bit too vehement, but he was a captain. He was good on that. Lazo Alavanya was hurt. Cristo Rey was injured because he got punched in the eye. So when all was said and done, it really had an impact. And here's why it had an impact the rest of the way. If we take a look at what happened here. So Gaston got a 5-game suspension plus the 1 for the red card. Leo got a 2-game suspension plus the 1 for the red card. Bailey got fined. Both teams got fined. They met one more time. Cleveland won at 7-2. By the way, Cleveland ended up winning the game in question here by a score of 5-4. They won late, and they went on a late run and made it all the way to the final. So had more guys been thrown out, I know from Chicago's perspective, missing Gaston and Leo down that stretch really hurt their chances and really swung kind of the playoff race, because Chicago was playing really well at the time, and it just, things turned out really, really weird. Let me ask you this. Steve Ryan, the league at the time, Commissioner Steve Ryan, the league looked into this. They watched what they could watch. How much did they get in touch with you and listen to you guys and your crew report? Did they get back with you, or did they just read your report?
I think they, believe it or not, obviously it was a while back, and my memory's not great, it never was, but according to my wife, but not a lot of communicate. I mean, we did communicate with paper, but the report went to Herb Silva, and then it was out of our hands pretty much, and that was it. The league dealt with it. There wasn't numerous phone calls of this and this and that, because they had the video. That was a good thing that they already had it, because the game was being televised.
Right.
And so I think they were just going off the video, and they took our report. Now we'll take that, and then they looked at the video, and then they dealt with everything. So, and
that's the other little thing that happened too. Remember, the NHL had a lockout that year, and so we were able to televise more indoor soccer games on the station that would have been carrying the Blackhawks, but the Blackhawks weren't playing, so the game was on television. So that's why we have this video 20 years later. As you look back on this now, 20 years later, and obviously, all our memories are what they are. What sticks out to you that you were like, when I reached out to you to say, hey, would you come and do this? You said, yeah, I'd love to do this. What sticks with you about this 20 years later?
Oh gosh, it just, you don't forget a game like that, obviously, but just the little things leading up to the game. I mean, one, we knew it was going to be a big game, playoff form, it was fighting for the playoffs.
Right.
I was working with a rookie referee, and I'm not throwing MISL under the bus or nothing. He did a fine job. He did great. Working with a new referee, inexperienced more, and sorry, the dogs are.
It's all right. We love dogs.
Attacking me. Anyways, that's really all I remember, and I don't remember if it was before or after. But Panera, Gaston, and Sean Boney got into it in Cleveland. I remember that. I don't know if I guess you'd have to see when Sean Boney was in the league.
Right. Oh yeah, I remember Sean.
Boney, was he like 6'9"?
Yeah, he was big, man.
270.
Yeah.
And him and they got into it. They didn't get into fisticuffs or anything, but they I wish I had the video because it's classic. They got into it. They looked like two battering rams. They were head to head, like two rams bumping up against each other. Like it was almost comical, but I knew I was in the middle of it trying to break it up, and I knew then I kind of looked at Sean and I go, I was thinking in my head, Sean, you could rip me in two right now and throw me across the field, but please, let's calm down. Let's, and we didn't end up not having a brawl, but when you look at Chicago, you look at Cleveland, there's some players on, some hotheads on them teams. God, the great Cleveland Crunch game, teams back in the day. God, yeah, there's 10 guys you can name off that you knew they're going to end up in the penalty box at some time or another, because they're all dedicated athletes. They don't want to lose, and so. But yeah, it was definitely fun. So
When was what was the last pro indoor game that you officiated? When did your career come to an end?
Got it right here. 2 years ago, April 2nd.
Okay.
2 years ago, April 2nd. Matter of fact, got the ticket right here. I worked in Florida, Florida Tropics, and St. Louis Ambush, and in Florida, and that was my last game. Walked off the field, and I was done.
Do you miss it?
I miss the fans. I miss the fans, and I miss the other referees that I worked with at the stadiums and across the country. The game, yeah, you miss the game. Come on, you don't want to lie and say you don't miss it. But I knew it was time. We have 6 dogs at our house. We have 5 acres, and I don't want to leave, my wife to deal with all this, pretty much a farm, and plus I enjoy being at home. I enjoy doing that stuff a little more than I do waking up at 6 in the morning, and going, or 3 in the morning going to the airport, But don't get me wrong, I loved it when I did it. It was a lot of fun.
What do you think of the state of the indoor game and how it changed from when you started in the MPSL in the early 90s to when you hung them up a couple of years ago in the 2020s in the MASL?
I think it was easier to ref back in the 90s, but that's because of technology. Back then you could do and say things and nobody had it was just word for, hey, did you say that? No, I didn't say that. But nowadays it's all out there. There's no, fudging your way through anything now because everybody's videotaping something. So right. That's probably the difference. Technology is different. So I don't want to sound controversy, but I'll say it. The talent was definitely better in the 90s.
I think everyone agrees with that.
No MLS. And then the MLS came, and then the really, really good players, they're going to the MLS because of the money and, fame. So, but nowadays the athletes, they're good. These guys are some athletes, These players can play. A lot of people, I have some friends that would sit up in the crowd and like, oh, Ron, we could play with those guys on our Saturday night. Like, no, you can't. You don't know the speed. You don't know until you're out there, So
where do you stand on the use of VAR, and especially now it's even in the indoor game, and challenges and video assists? You mentioned how it would have come in handy on this night in Chicago, but it's used a lot. It seems to, some folks think it slows the game down. It's administrative. It's hard, but it has, the idea is to get calls right. Where do you stand on VAR?
I don't like it, but I do think they need it. Okay, but maybe not as extensive as they use it right now. I just think it should be on a couple of things, and that's it. I was when I retired about a year and a half ago from the director of officials. I had 4 college conferences: the MIAA, the Hart, the HAC. Anyways, I would get emails from coaches and like, Ron, look at this. The guy called. This is a horrible call, Ron. So I'd watch the video, and it's not that bad of a call.
Right.
And he did call a penalty kick. Had he not called the penalty kick, your email would have never came. The other coach would have sent an email saying, why didn't he call this penalty kick? So it's judgment. I think they're trying to split hairs too much. And I don't know. That's just my opinion. Not. I think Ryan does a great job with and Keith Tozier and all the officials do a great job with the way the red flags used now and everything. I think it's too much. But then again, that's just my opinion. I just think it needs to be on just maybe 1 or 2 big issues. And if a coach is going to challenge a possible foul, you're talking judgment. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
You and I are old school, right? We get it. We're old school.
Yeah, old school. Yeah.
Well, Ron, thanks so much for your time. I'm glad we finally got got to connect on this. I know we've been trying for a while. Your perspective is really valuable. You've uncovered some stuff that we hadn't thought about 20 years ago, and we didn't talk about when we did the live stream. So I really thank you for coming on Soccer Rewind tonight.
I appreciate it. And I wish I could have been on the other night when you had some of the other players on there. That'd have been fun.
Well, maybe on the 25th anniversary, we'll do it again, and maybe we'll even know more, and we'll be able to get Omid to come on, and maybe Freddie DeGan and some other guys as well.
Yeah, get them guys on. Yeah, but
we'll get you off the farm. Ron Cory, thanks for your time, sir.
Hey, thanks a lot. Good night.
All right, Ron Cory, great conversation about a very interesting part in American indoor soccer history. That is it for Soccer Rewind Extra, our first one ever. Let us know what you thought of this video. Give us a like, put a comment in the comments below. Send us an email. You can email us at rewind@ken.com. Let us know things that you want to see on the channel, and we will see you next time. And remember, be kind, rewind.
See Fred DeGan still there. We understood that DeGan had been removed, and now security taking him out. Let's hear from Frank Lopez next.
Hey, right, just don't be stupid, right?
They have a no goal.
No, they got him. Put him back. That's all right. That's all right. Hey, just stay organized in the back. Don't run around and just knock the ball around. We get our chances. We got 2 lines around everywhere, okay? Let's go, boys. 1, 2, 3, start.
Let's go.